I was just realizing how much I like that intro song. I think it's really cool. I don't know about you all, but I kind of like it. Anyway, welcome to EIS Live. As you may or may not know, Emotional Intelligence Solutions is a counseling and coaching entity that helps people focus on becoming their most genuine selves as individuals, couples, in marriage and in business, and trying to alleviate everything that's in the way of us becoming that person that we were intended to be. So I just wanted to put that out there. And during our time today, you'll probably see some things flashing on the screen that let you know how to connect with us along the way if you desire to do so. In this work, we couple this with what we term, which most people term leadership development. And the reason we believe it dovetails so well is that leadership actually starts from the inside out. It's not something that we just learn technically how to function or to perform well in business and know systems and so on and so forth. True leadership really starts from the inside out, and it starts in our home life and our individual lives, and certainly in our relationships and marriages at home. So that's another aspect of what EIS is all about. So in our live shows, these are really comprised of testimonies of people whose lives have been transformed by going through the process that we offer. Some of the guests are a part of our team of counselors, and 2 of them are with us today. Some of them are authors. Some of them are other professionals in the field that can lend insight into what we do. So hopefully you'll be able to join us each week, Mondays at 6 p.m. Eastern time, right here on YouTube and on Facebook. So before we get started, I want to mention that you can post your questions right up here. You should have a way to do that, and just post your questions. I'll try to put up comments as we move along, but the questions will be answered more towards the end of that. One's something coming up right here. Look at that. We got somebody waiting for Marie to come on. But right now, I'm going to start by introducing my guest co-host for today as my media czar. Vanessa is not available to help today, so hopefully technically things won't crash and burn. But right now, my friend Anita is going to join us. Hi, Anita.
Hey, Bill, how are you? And please don't let anything crash and burn because you're not going to get the help.
I know.
Sure, no.
But yeah, Anita is one of our newest additions to the team. Her and her husband, Pepe, and my wife and myself have been friends for 20-something years. And we go way, way back. We've been support system for each other's families for a long time. And also, referred professionally back and forth to one another, right, Anita? We have a long history.
Very long history. And we were both in opposite fields at the time, so it was awesome to be able to collaborate together and even spend some time with the Hope Center and feeding the homeless, and so many avenues that we've shared. So it's been a great journey, Bill, and I'm excited to be back with you again for another round. So
interesting how God works and puts these things together, right?
I can't believe it, but I'm excited, and so is my husband. So thank you.
Yes, thank you. You guys are a great addition to the team. So again, Pepe is Anita's husband, and he's also now a licensed, I forget your certification. It's licensed
temperament counselors.
Temperament counselors. Okay. And yeah, they're a part of the team now. And we're so excited to have you. And also we're excited to have Marie. So she's another member of our team. And I want to get ready to bring her on. She's one of our EIS counselors, of course, and is the author of a wonderful book. It's a journal. We're going to talk about that today, called No More Anxiety. You see me putting that up. I'm going to turn it sideways so it doesn't get all messed up with my green screen background here. But this is a journal-based book. Marie and I were chatting about this last night, and how to use this. And I love journal books. I'm working on my next book, which is also journal-based. I just think it's a great tool to help us to navigate through any kind of a process of change in life. So, and her point, of course, as is EIS right across the board, is that we don't want to just cope and hope with anxiety or anything else that's going on in our lives. We actually want to overcome it. So I want to welcome Maria Lawson. Hey, Marie.
Hey, Bill. How are you?
I'm good.
Hey, Anita. Nice to see you both.
Nice to see you too. really the first time I'm getting to know you. So I'm very excited to do that on this live broadcast. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So I don't mind telling everybody, Marie, that this is not your strong suit to be out in like front of cameras and talking and stuff, because I'm very apologetic for myself all the time. It always takes me 10 or 15 minutes to get rolling. And Anita's in the same boat. So we have lots of grace for each other here, you know.
Yeah. And you look beautiful, by the way, Marie.
Thank you. Thank you. That helps.
But really, what we try to do, and I mention this all the time, is to not have a any kind of a clinical environment or just an interview environment, like holding the mic up to your face, like, okay, what about this, and then what about this, and what about this. We really want to have a conversation. So kind of right off the bat, I want to get to know you a little bit more, and I know we've had a few times, like up at the retreat, that time to chat a bit, and other times when we were training in the beginning, we were talking a whole lot more, of course, but. Maybe you could let some of the folks in on a little bit of your background, and then kind of leading up into how we got together.
Well, raised in the Midwest of mixed parents. My father is from Cuban descent, and my mom is from the West Indies. And so with that mixture, ended up in New York, which gave me anxiety. And the journey... been through anxiety myself, just coming into New York. It was just another step to understanding what it is to go through anxiety. And I've always had a desire to help people. As a little girl, people are drawn. I've been helping people. People would come to me and ask me questions. And so I have this, not knowing, people would reach out to me asking me questions, and I would have answers, because I was very talkative all my life, pretty much. And somehow through the corporate world, got tired of it, eventually decided with all the people looking to me for answers and going through my own journey where I needed answers, of just being, going through situations where I needed an answer. And I'm one person who likes to find answers. I like to know the root of everything, and that's kind of my bent. And I knew if it wasn't counseling, it would have been law school. And so I chose counseling because of my nieces. Actually, their friends would look to me for directions. And I've been in situations where, but for the grace of God, with friends, trying to rescue friends out of tough situations, human trafficking, you name it, I've been in it to rescue kids. And so abused kids, I've worked a lot with abused kids. And from that journey, I decided that counseling is my thing. And so pursued a master's in counseling and went further. And I'm still on a journey of pursuing that. And that led me to EIS, of course. And so I'm having a great time. I love the people, love the culture, and my goal is just to help people. I love people. I want to see their lives transform. I want to see people enjoy what they were made for and why they're here, that they know their purpose and live their purpose. And Bill, I thank you so much for helping me along the journey with EIS, and we look forward to see what this all will bring. Hope that answers your question.
Absolutely. The one element maybe you could, I'll just use me as an example, which I usually do, I guess, because I'm so old and I have tons of examples to reflect upon at this stage of my life, but I always use my background, going all the way back to my childhood of, having alcoholic parents and, all that trauma growing up, and then becoming an alcoholic myself until I was 30. And as I always say, kind of building my testimony while I was doing those years. I was really kind of working on getting myself ready for what was ultimately in store for me, Maybe you can expound just a little bit more on, you don't need to give us all the gory details or anything, but what was your background like? I mean, was it dysfunctional? Were you searching for something when you kind of made those steps that you mentioned?
Actually, I've always been searching, it seems like. And I was raised in a home with strict parents. very, very strict. I couldn't go anywhere without an adult. I wasn't allowed to be out without my parents knowing where I am. So I was that kind of child. I was very close to my mom, and she sheltered me. I was very sheltered until I came to New York. Then the whole world opened up to me. And so, and through just my own journey of relationships, I got really hurt. And that's where I really experienced life. Throughout life, it's been pretty easy. I do have older sisters and brothers. I'm like the second to last. And so my mom is just precious. My dad is more the introvert. Somewhat, my mom is the one that's the authoritative one. And so she have just kept me in check. And looking back, I'm thankful because there's so much things that I could have gone through. I didn't. I was one of those child that says, if your mom says stop, I stop. How far? How far? Until I came to New York, everything changes. So I get to experience life in a different realm. I didn't go crazy because there were some boundaries that I already have established for myself. And so I just learned to enjoy people. And in the midst of that, I was in a relationship, got married, got divorced through the midst of that. It was just a painful situation I ended up in, very naive. And so from that, I felt like I was rescued. And so life only got better for me. And I've learned along the way what life journey can be like when you've gone through a situation and you're on the other side where you've experienced trauma as far as emotional pain and able to overcome with people. I've always been surrounded with people who are wise. I do have that all through life. I've always had people around me who would get me in and out of situations where only their timing was always perfect. I remember at one point in my life where I was asked, I was naive, and somebody says, "Oh, we're going to do a photo shoot. We want you to come." And it was the regular photo shoot. But a friend of my mom says, "We're going with you." And so she came with me. I'm like, okay, like, it's no big deal. We're just friends. It was more than just that. And so I've seen through the journey of life where I'm about to get into a jam, there's always someone there to say no or stop whatever's about to go down to protect me. So I've seen protection all the way through, and I'm thankful for the people God I know placed around me to help me through the journey of life. So the only thing I really have that really shook me to the core was the relationship I was in, and I can look back and say, God, you have really rescued me, and learn from that, and even want to help others through that journey, and learning forgiveness, what forgiveness looks like. That was the piece that I enjoyed the most, to see what forgiveness looked like, because I could easily say, I hate this person, but God put a love in my heart for this person that I could say, I forgave you, enjoy your life, and move on. And so that was a piece that I was like, wow. And I experienced such freedom. So when I do speak about forgiveness in the EIS counseling culture, I'm speaking of forgiveness from a place where I had to learn forgiveness. I had to learn from someone who took advantage of a situation and turn it around for something beautiful. And through that journey and being on the East Coast, I had to learn how to overcome anxiety as well. So the experiences that I'm sharing and my training comes with a lot of experience. As far as when I do speak, I'm speaking from experience.
So Marie, was as the pursuit of like counseling as maybe a career or whatever you saw in your heart that you wanted to do it for, was that after all of the stuff that you just mentioned? Yes, that was after. Actually, I was working in corporate America. I was working for Pricewaterhouse, and I've had a journey with Sprint, long distance, and German telecom. And so while I was working for these companies, I was not fulfilled. And I was working long hours, great salary, but I was not fulfilled.
And I realized that there's more to life. I was tired, stressed out, and there was no end. And I decided this is not for me. And people are always coming to me, asking me questions and looking to me for solutions. And even my bosses, and I'm like, okay, there's more to this. And I had so much fun. I would go away to camp with kids, and it was such a beautiful thing. I felt like this is my world. And so I was approached by someone actually to go back to school, and they paid for my first semester to go back to school to pursue my master's. And that's pretty much how it started. And because I love to learn, and I guess they heard my heart cry. And as I said before, there's always been someone in my life along the journey to say, here, let's take this next step. And so I went to Liberty University, and the professors were awesome, 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 awesome. The journey was just a wonderful experience because they worked with me as I went through the classes to make sure that I am the best counselor out there, because that was what they wanted of me. Like, I want you to be the best counselor you can be out there, authentic. And so I appreciate all my teachers. They've been wonderful and guided me along the best path. And I love what I do. I love helping people. I find great satisfaction. I find joy. And I'm forever learning. I'm learning from them. I'm learning from you. I'm learning from Anita. I'm forever learning. And so I'm thankful for the people that's in my circle. So yeah, the counseling came after the corporate America experience and after the trauma.
Okay.
Well, it really sounds like you're in the right place, Marie, because I was just telling Bill the same thing this afternoon. I keep buying books because I have to know. There's just so much to know. He's already telling me who's on next week, and I'm like, oh, got to buy another book. So yeah, you're really in the right place, because this is the arena where, you know, we have this ability and this, you know, we're made this way to want to help people. So it's awesome. I also went to Liberty, so we share that. Yes.
Awesome.
I went to Liberty, but it's just awesome to be able to help. And I think in this arena of EIS too, I mean, that's the most thing that gets me excited, is to be able to share this, you know, with other young people who may not have anyone in their life like your nieces had with you or her friends had with you. Like, these are people we don't know, and yet we get to speak into their lives, life-changing ideas. But I was just wondering one thing. What led you to concentrate so laser sharp on anxiety?
That's a good question. When I first started my own counseling practice, Prepared Approach, here in Inglewood Cliffs, most of my clients were experiencing anxiety from the ages of 10 on up, and families were just pouring in, and last one, anxiety. And I'm like, oh, what do I do? And at first I could not see breakthroughs, and I'm like, okay, there has to be more. Grab more books. I talked to my mentors to see what's going on here, and they're like, well, it's just the way things are. And this has been what, probably, I want to say, more than 7 years ago or so. And I decided, okay, I'm going to pray and see what I need to do, because there should be an answer. I don't take no very easily. I'm one to dig until I find answers. And I have a lot of resources around me. And so I dig, and through prayer, God gave me an answer. Asked this one question, went back to one family, asked one question, and the breakthrough came. And I'm like, okay. And so I started using this process that's in this book to go through with families. And I'm seeing through this process, then I start to see breakthrough. And so from this, I decided, okay. And I started documenting. And what I think I regretted most, that maybe I should have added a few of the testimonies in the book as well. So maybe the next go around, I probably include some testimonies of families that got breakthroughs. And so I look forward. I wrote the book with the intent that people can just grab the book, do the work, walk through the process, because unless you walk through the process or do the work, so to speak, you won't see the transformation like I experienced and others experienced. Most of what is in this book I've done in a practical manner. I watch the way I eat. I pretty much walk through this process myself.
And it's, you know, it's true, like the anxiety level, I think like after 9/11 and now after the whole year we've been through, I think the anxiety level is just off the roof now. So it came out in the most timely manner of 2021 when everyone in the aftermath is still feeling that anxiety of everything that we've been through with COVID and all that. So it's a perfect timing. But I see too, like with a lot of clients, they may not seem anxious, but once they start, they might not even realize they're anxious. But once you start talking to them and you start digging into those childhood traumas and they start to explain to you, you know, oh yeah, this is what had happened, they begin to get anxious. You can just see the signs and symptoms that you talk about in your book show up on their face, and then you know, bam, we've got an anxiety issue here. So the book is a great asset and tool to use when counseling people. So thank you, Marie.
You're welcome.
Yeah, when I think too, when you said, you know, the process, you know, that you used, of course, we utilize a process and, you know, generally speaking at EIS with all these different elements, you know,
Yeah.
but really for every one of these elements, there's other facets that could be attached to that in terms of anxiety, you know, depression, accountability, you know, all of the other aspects that we talk about all the time.
Yeah.
That really are a part of growth in the process, which you're reflecting on as your own growth process, you know. So I really see this as kind of fitting right into that, because anxiety is, as Anita pointed out, and you're right, I think since 9/11, everybody said after 9/11, nothing's ever going to be the same, you know, kind of like after COVID. Even COVID itself has been such an anxiety producer over the past year and a half. And will continue to be that, I think, for quite some time to come. You know, this world is not getting any better, so to speak. Like it's not going to, you know, we're not going back to the simple days of which never really were simple anyway. You know, of the earlier days and so on. The good old days are now, so we have to make the best of them and not just cope and hope, of course, and learn how to, as I said earlier, not just cope with anxiety with coping mechanisms, but really to alleviate anxiety and to grow out of the areas that cause us to continue to be anxious. You know, even our thought life, right? Like taking our thoughts captive. Like if we're not doing that, we're going to wind up in a big, you know, deep hole, especially melancholies and supines all the time, because we're going to be thinking our brains out and going down these rabbit trails. And I call it the black hole or the vortex.
Yeah.
You know, and really have a very difficult time getting out. And that aspect, that just one aspect alone keeps us in anxiety loops and cycles that just don't go away. So we were chatting last night and I pointed out, you know, that what I like is the different areas, and I've told people this too, is that there's different areas that you focus on, from the practical to the spiritual. Maybe you can kind of fill us in on those areas.
Well, what I've found with my clientele and just in a journey of life is that we're three-part beings. And in order to address just one part, we're going to leave the other parts broken. So we need all three parts to be attended to, so to speak. So the plan is not just to do the spiritual aspect of it, but also to do the physical as well, which is just your day-to-day. How do you live day-to-day? Most time we're not paying attention, as one of the articles we put out last week, where we're not living in the now, and that creates anxiety in itself. And so the practical aspect of the day-to-day is to just allow you to be in the now, NOW, and then the spiritual component, and then added that together in the mental, that just sums it all up. That's just the total sum right there. And so I thought, based on my own experience and others that I've introduced us to, is when all three areas are covered, you tend to experience freedom.
So it's not just, obviously, it's not just the one area. Now, I remember going way back in school, with learning in psychology, for example, how even things like inner ear problems
Yes.
can affect us, which was a surprise to me when I went to school. As like, wait a minute, seriously? As like, how can that affect us? But anything that affects our body is going to affect our mental state and our spiritual state, right?
Yes. Bill, as I say sometimes to my clients, is your body keeps the score.
Mm-hmm. Expound on that a little bit. Talk about that a little bit.
In other words, if we are taking in toxic things daily, it's going to affect us in a toxic way. And so if we're not paying attention to how we're living, it's going to the stress is going to affect our bodies. For example, we know stress leads to anxiety, could lead to the end result is heart problems, dysfunctional homes. And so it affects all areas of our lives. And so we need to we pay attention a lot to the physical, but we need to pay a lot more attention to the mental as well. How are we doing mentally? Are we paying attention to what we're thinking and what we're allowing our eyes, our ears, and our mouths to speak?
Yes.
Yeah, and if we're eating too much comfort food, too much sugar, I noticed that in your daily last week, too much sugar, too much caffeine, too much soda, too much whatever, too much of anything really. Yeah. But these really destructive elements that we stick in our bodies definitely play with our minds. And so those areas totally dovetail. So when you said the body keeps score, right?
Yeah.
And so to me, that sounds like, the body is telling us things, but the question is, are we listening to it? Are we listening to these signs, hopefully before, we start to wind up with becoming stroke material or heart attack material, especially as we get older? Yeah. Are we walking? Are we exercising? Are we releasing the endorphins? Are we doing all of these things? And as Sandy just pointed out, the body itself holds on to memories and the impact of trauma.
Yes.
Going way back to the first 3 months of our existence on the planet.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I did write a post on that exactly last week. About I had all this issues with my shoulder and neck and never really put it together that it actually had to do with the trauma from when I was younger. And it took years to figure that out. So it's so awesome that you have that out for everyone to read now and to really understand and take hold of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is just such an important part of things that people just aren't aware of. And to be honest with you, I don't think I capitalize on it as much as I could. But that's why I like your book as being an adjunct to everything that we're doing here. There's not one part of us that's disconnected from the other part. That we have to pay attention. Like you said, we're 3-part beings made in the image of God. I don't get all religious on people or anything, but the body is really a temple of God. God created it for his purpose. And I'm one who can testify to that, and I'm so grateful every day that I'm alive, because I drank my brains out until I was 30 years old and did drugs and did so many things that should have killed me 10 times over. And then I had associates over the next 20, 30 years who had done the same thing as I did and died of cirrhosis of the liver or died of other related illnesses. And it's not that they weren't serving God too. I'd always wondered, well, why did God spare me, And I smoked and I did all these things, and I'm so grateful that I quit all of that when I was 30 years old and had an opportunity, to redeem myself. I always had a weight problem, but it was about 10 or 12 years ago, I had reached the max of 250 pounds. I'm sure Anita remembers that.
You should put that picture up.
Wow.
Maybe next time, Anita. Thank you very much. But I was determined, and Maria, you and I had talked a little bit, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago, we talked about doing this, and you felt like I just don't have enough time to do these things. And you said, I know that's not true. Remember that? And I said, what, that happened to me when I was faced with okay, I'm 50 something years old. I don't want to be a fat old guy with a heart issue who can't make it up a flight of stairs. And I was like, well, I'm already working. I was doing New York City Relief during the day and I was doing counseling in the evenings. It's like, where am I going to find time now to put the gym in there or to, go on Weight Watchers? And I decided that, it was just a lie, like you had said, and that I'm going to get a hold of this thing again. And I just said, well, I'm going to get up an hour or so early, maybe a half an hour earlier. I started to go to the gym or to the park. That was back in Jersey when there was winter and you couldn't go to the park in the winter. Now it's different out here, of course. But I just determined, and I started I did an hour's worth of exercise every day. My wife and I went on our Weight Watchers and I lost 70 pounds in 6 months. I took those thoughts captive, decided that, I can't do this. And everything's changed so much for me by doing that. Everything.
Yeah.
And the thing is too, we all get 24 hours a day to do stuff. All do. And it's something to do with it. So a lot of times my clients will say, well, I don't have time, I can't, but I always say back to them, it's 24 hours that you have to be mindful at that moment of what you're doing.
Right. And two things I would say is an awareness. We need to come into an awareness either through counseling or through even the people we associate ourselves with. We can learn from each other. And so one of the things we want to do is even to be accountable with our health, spiritually, in every sense. Accountability is great because it brings you into an awareness where, okay, I'm doing something wrong. I need help. Where do I get the help? And who can help me? And we're here for relationships. And so from relationships, you can develop these skills. You can realize that, okay, something is wrong. I need to pay attention to this. And that's kind of what led me down some of these pathways. Something is wrong. Pay attention. And so,
I want to point out too that in your book, you have in the beginning, you have a section called "What is making you anxious?"
Yeah.
What causes anxiety, and then common symptoms and different types of anxiety disorders and so on.
Yeah.
Treatment. And then what I really like, and we talked a little bit about this last night, Marie, was this 30-day plan of overcoming anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
And I love this approach. Like I mentioned, my next book is like the first 40 days and beyond. I always love that approach where, we can make a commitment to something that's tangible, that we can actually sink our teeth into, no pun intended, as far as food. But we can sink our teeth into this way of change and I love the word accountability, of course. We had Sam Silverstein on here, Mr. Accountability. But I love the way you have it laid out in day one, foods and meals, activities, exercise, hours of sleep, symptoms. And I love that word, as I mentioned to you last night, again, is discovery. Yeah. Like, what are we discovering as we're making this shift, in our approach to life, basically, to a healthier lifestyle, really, when it comes right down to it? Are we discovering that we're worrying less? Are we discovering that, coupled with some of the other disciplines that we can incorporate, like taking our thoughts captive, are we not allowing our thoughts to run off with us and things of that nature, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's key, our thoughts, because our thought lives can take us into so many different arenas and create so many problems, trauma. Our thought lives can create, and most of our thoughts, most of the time we don't pay attention to our thoughts. And most of what we're thinking, it's not even true. And because what we do is we use substance or relationships or a thing to keep us from thinking or paying attention to our thoughts. And I would just, just say out there to Facebook fans is just to say, listen, pay attention to your thoughts. Take at least a few minutes per day and just sit. And that's why journaling is so great. And even through this book, if you just sit down and just start writing, you'll find yourself start thinking and even come to the root of what's going on with you and come up with solutions and look at the resources around you to get you to where you need to be to live the life that you were put on earth to live.
Yep. And back to journaling too, I always found through my journey, which I've been going to counseling forever, feels like, journaling would just unlock so many unconscious things I
Yeah.
didn't even know I was thinking. So I would just take the pen to the paper. You know, I love that thing of having a question there to get
Yeah.
you started, to kind of prime the rope, and just start writing and realize the stuff that just comes out that I really need to heal and I need a connection with. And we're all in the same boat. We're humans. This is what happens.
Yeah.
You know, I can find, like, with trauma, what's traumatizing to one person might not affect the other person. I mean, it depends on the temperament. It just depends on a lot of different things. So, you know, trauma sometimes is a stigmatizing word, like, oh, I got traumatized, but it really isn't. It's really just the human condition for us at this point in life. So I love that part of it. It's really,
Yeah.
I'm curious though, what is your temperament, if you don't mind me asking, Marie?
Oh, not at all.
Okay.
It's the thing.
Yeah, it's the thing in this place.
Actually, in inclusion, phlegmatic, caloric, and control, melancholy, in affection, and supine.
Oh, you're almost the
And
same.
I've worked through it because Miss Phyllis would not let me go either. Who wrote temperament? Yeah. Okay, so yeah, I was under. Yeah, she would not let me go. She gave me my piece on that.
Oh, you know, I go to church with her every week now, and we have conversations in the hallway after service about temperament. I always give her a question, and I just love her. She just gives me all these great answers on it. But yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
So we're almost the same, except
Yeah.
I'm with you in control and affection. Only inclusion, I'm melancholy compulsive.
No. Oh, okay.
Lots
Okay.
of thinking.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I wanted to go back to exposing the root. That's so important because if we don't get to the root of what's going on with us as individuals, we will never be the people we're called to be totally. And so we want to get to the root. And how do we get there? It's worth exploring why, the whys, the what, the when, and the how.
Awesome.
Yeah, I mean, the elements of journaling, and again, I'm capitalizing on that in my next book too, is what I call the three areas, which is what we're talking about here. The root system journaling is excavational journaling or archaeological journaling, really digging into the root systems with our parents and our growing up experiences and so on. You really can't be free, as we've talked about, and be the people that we're meant to be until we expose those roots, obviously.
Yeah.
And then there's what we call, classic journaling, which is your day-to-day journaling. Like, hey, I felt this way today, or, I got in an argument here and I was hurt today, or I found myself being angry today, whatever.
Yeah.
And then there's forward journaling or future self journaling, which is actually much more now coming into the spotlight. And I'm definitely capitalizing on that, which is more of an affirming journaling and a pointed journaling, picking out areas that we're uncovering that we want to work on. Like this day, this week, I want to work on taking my thoughts captive in this area, or I want to work on dropping down from 5 cups of coffee to 1, or I want to work on not going to Burger King and, getting 2 double Whoppers on the way home from work and then eating dinner. Or whatever it might be, so that we're accountable to ourselves in journaling on a daily basis, and, engaged in a process that really encompasses all of these areas as we're talking about. But that element right there is one that's really coming to be a part of a lot of different people's programs and moving forward, that forward journaling, and it just helps so much to get you also mentioned being self-aware earlier, Marie.
Yeah.
It really helps with self-awareness and understanding what we're doing, why we're doing it, and the effect that it's actually having on my life.
Right.
What I tell people all the time, I think, Anita, you and I talked about this earlier with Bob Newhart video, just stop it. There's so many things that we just do that we excuse away or we're addicted to as coping mechanisms, Marie, as you mentioned earlier, for our anxiety or for our fears. Or projecting, we have a tendency to project, for example, and that's where we lose our thought life as well, is we project into oblivion, especially melancholies will do that. It's like we project things that probably aren't going to happen, but we project the worst case scenarios, and that alone will cause anxiety in us and fears to rise up. And so all these elements of journaling will really help us to uncover the past and how it's feeding these areas in terms of what you're presenting here, being accountable to what we're eating, how we're thinking, what we're reading, what are we consuming, how are we acting, and then forward journaling, keeping an eye on and keeping ourselves accountable to that forward movement. That is, like I always say, if you're not moving forward, you're going backwards. You're not going to just stand still.
Correct.
Absolutely. Yeah, and even as you're talking about this, Bill, I didn't even realize. I have so much to learn being new to this, but I'm learning. I didn't realize there were 3 different kinds of journaling. So thank you for bringing that out. But when you talk about forward journaling, it almost seems like an oxymoron to our mindfulness thinking, because we're just saying here, we want you to be mindful of the moment, but yet we're telling you to forward journal. But I think that's just a great tool to use, almost like a GPS. Where am I going? And it kind of makes you be okay living in the moment then, because you kind of know where you're going to go. And so you can live in that moment, and you can think about what you're eating, what you're thinking, what needs to happen to take those thoughts captive and live in that moment. And so that forward journaling just is something something new out there, which I think is.
Yeah, if you go to, Nicole LaPera, I probably have a hard time seeing this.
Yeah.
Nicole LaPera, the holistic psychologist.
Yes.
You can go on her website, sign up for her email list, and you can go download this yourself.
Okay.
It's only a few pages. It's very self-explanatory and very simple. She gives you all the examples and the lead-ins and everything for forward journaling or future self-journaling. And then these blank pages that you can just print out. I know it's really hard to see.
Yeah.
And then puts the examples in the other pages so that you know how to use this.
Okay.
So actually, Anita, what it does is it accomplishes this accountability to all of the areas by being aware that, okay, I've recognized a problem that's actually rooted in my past. I see that I'm actually having trouble functioning in this area now. And going forward, I want to get myself into a system of some kind that will help eliminate the fear, the anxiety, or whatever else is the after result of my not paying attention to this and being accountable to change in these areas and transformation. And that's really a key word that we want to incorporate here is transformation, because we don't want Band-Aids and we don't want quick fixes and we don't want coping mechanisms, as we've pointed out several times today. And Marie's book is not about coping mechanisms. It's about fostering long-term transformation and change.
Yes. That's a lifestyle, and as you're talking about the forwarding journaling, Bill, that could lead to a healthy self-awareness.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it leads to also the way she has it set up. And again, I'm trying to work on developing my own pathway in that realm in terms of EIS in the process, but it's really about, she has it when you go and look at this, she has it so you can pinpoint specific areas, hold yourself accountable to them, and she'll give you the mechanisms to incorporate to work on this. And she starts simple, to pick something simple that you're struggling with, and so that you can focus on that and be aware of it during the next week. So I really like that approach, much like you did, Maria. Is like I said earlier, like you're writing down, what am I eating? What activity am I exercising? Am I sleeping well enough? What are the symptoms I've been experiencing? And am I discovering, that at the end of it, the next or the last few days, am I actually doing it? Number one, am I seeing some changes, and what are they as I move forward? And so on that level, it's really the same type of a thing, but more in a forward, pointedly forward movement. Yeah.
Yeah. In that segment of the book where it talked about, your discovery, if you write down your meals, your activities throughout the day, how many hours of sleep, you should see some symptoms, and you should also discover something about yourself, something about your thoughts, something about that you're doing that you could tweak, change, or maybe improve on. can see where you've lost some weight. You could see where you need to increase sleep. You could even see where you need to change something you're eating because of, allergic reaction or what it does to your body versus the next day. I love chocolate. I love dark chocolate. And I realized after a while it was having an adverse effect on me. And so by paying attention, I realized, okay, eliminate chocolate and see if I have the same effect, the same results. Right on. It was chocolate. So I had to give away all my dark chocolate. Not happy.
You gave it to me, Marie. I would have taken it.
I'll ship some to you.
I love dark chocolate. Yeah.
Can't eat it anymore. Stop. Yeah. So,
Well,
and it's just going through this process that I eliminate certain foods that I know it's not right for my body.
Right. And I think you have to go through this awareness too, because everybody's different.
Absolutely.
You may not affect someone else. And so you need to find your own lane. And so having a book like that and having that vehicle to get you in your own lane is really, really important too. So
yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and this lends itself into what I mentioned at the onset of our time here today, is that it's more than counseling. I think our approach to things, I like the name of your original company, Marie, Prepared Approach, because it really is, it's a prepared approach as far as the processes that we use, and they incorporate these different facets, of course, but it's not just counseling. Counseling, many times people look at as something's wrong with me.
Right.
I have to go for therapy or counseling. What we're really doing is providing, I kind of, in the same way as the journaling, the counseling is the part that's really helping with presenting problems, but the presenting problems are attached to previous problems and root systems and all that. And that counseling and the archaeological aspect of things is such a part of the counseling. But what about this, like the now, as you mentioned earlier, Marie, like living in the now and my everyday life moving forward? What does that look like? And so that's the coaching part and the mentoring part, that we help people with as well, to, learn how to live their lives in a healthy way, not just, again, like, something's broken, let's fix it and move on from there. We all know that that's not the way that it works, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
We don't just fix things and then we're okay, and then we just kind of, okay, see you later, we're moving on from here, And you mentioned earlier, Marie, that it's a lifelong journey.
It is, yes.
And a lifestyle.
It is a lifestyle. And I also want to go back to the disorders, the anxiety disorders. We can't just look at one symptom and say, I'm anxious, I have separation anxiety. You want to find at least 5 symptoms to say, I'm experiencing I'm experiencing separation anxiety. So I don't want anyone out there to just look at one aspect and say, oh, I'm experiencing this, or try to label yourself right away. You need to speak to a counselor to see how many of the symptoms are you experiencing before we can say you are this or you're that. There's a process to go through in order to know what disorder you're experiencing.
Good to know.
Everything is a process.
Yes. So is
that. Yeah, and I've always told people, is like, if you want to, and I see the results of this all the time. When people come and they skip over parts of the process because they just have a hard time journaling, or they have a hard time with this or that, it's always going to wind up showing up later.
Yes.
Yeah, that's so true.
Always. And it could be years later, and I had this now because when we first started doing this with, Tony's organization, particularly in 2014 and 15, there was a lot of people that came in the very beginning. Some may be watching right now, that, they came because they were told to come. It was the cool thing to do, was to go. And, back then it was me and Damali. That was about it. And, and to do this thing, get your test, and all that. And then people would kind of light into it, but they really wouldn't latch onto the process. And in fact, I didn't have the process as defined back then as I do now anyway. So, but what's happening is a lot of these folks have gone on, in life into different areas of life, gotten married and other things. and they're finding these areas that are surfacing now, because they never did that work, and so by the grace of God, we're still around and we're growing so that we can accommodate, but my point on all of that is that, if you're not going to learn that lesson now, you're going to have to learn it later.
Right.
And not only that, get into a lifestyle that is going to promote just living this way, because we want to avoid, and I've always told people this, it's not like we're telling you gotta, like work the rest of your life, and just like grind away. Of course, melancholies would love to do that because we just like to stick our face in the grindstone and keep going. But, that's not really the case unless you make it that way. But if you develop a lifestyle of accountability and staying in the process and doing all the things that we're pointing out today, and we're not going to do them perfectly, but if we do them, then we don't really have to keep going back around the mountain again, over and over.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally. I agree with that.
Yeah. And that's the mentoring and the coaching aspect of, the work that we do, is like, we want to get this stuff built into people, because it says be transformed by the renewing of your mind, right? So the mind is catching up with all the stuff that's being done, and through all the work, it's not to fix something. And I always stress that with people. It's about, let the change happen, and your perceptions will change of yourself, number one. I mean, I certainly know for me, in the Bible, it says, for example, as a man believes or thinks in his heart, so he is. So I had such a warped picture of who I was through all of my brokenness and all of my years. That needed course correction, to put it mildly, but it wasn't on the surface course correction. In other words, I didn't just need to stop drinking. I needed a massive excavation of my heart.
Yes.
Because I had all of the symptoms and more of somebody who was suffering from that trauma, Anita, that you mentioned earlier, that we really, especially, and I believe in the United States, we have a unique type of a trauma. In this, and every country is a little bit different, in their own trauma, of course, not that we're worse or better than anybody else, but recognizing those areas and the lifestyle problems that we encounter, largely because we have so much to choose from and too much to choose from.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I totally agree. Looking back, even at anxiety, it's the brain just trying to keep up. And so what we allow our brain to, what we think affects our brain. What we're not thinking also affects our brain. And sometimes we have no control, because as children, we're raised in an environment where the surrounding creates a thinking of negativity. And so not given the tools, or not having the tools, it just carries over and over and becomes a cycle. And so it's the earlier we can intervene and not see ourselves as we need to fix this, but see ourselves as working through our thoughts, understanding who we are and why we're the way we are, will help us to avoid a lot of these pitfalls, a lot of these, negative behavior or negative outcome in lives that we experience. Will we experience them? Yes. Can we walk through them and come out on the other side? Yes, we can. Sometimes we need help, and that's why we're here. That's why I wrote the book, to say, you have help. Use the resources that are available. Use us. Use the books to help you to get on the road, to help you to find life and enjoy your life.
Yeah, and sometimes I see a lot of this on the young people on their intake forms. I lived my best years already. I've already made too many mistakes. Well, it's never too late. I mean, look at our age. I mean, we're still working on stuff. It's never too late. And sometimes too, it's kind of like, and I know for me it was like this, it kind of came in cycles where something would rise to the surface and I would realize, I need to talk to a mentor. I need to talk to someone to walk me through this process. I would walk through it for a season and then I would be okay. But then maybe a year later, something would happen and something else would pop out. Go back into counseling, work on it for a little bit. So it's kind of like Bill saying before, you don't need to put your nose to the grindstone, work everything, and this is the rest of your life, and you're never going to get free. That's not what it is at all. It's just part of like, I mean, going to the dentist, you know, you find a cavity, you fix it, and then you wait till the following year. But it's kind of like the similar thing where, you know, things happen and we get to it, never too late. You can work on these things, work on your book, work on the process, things like that.
Yeah.
Well, we want to get out of the lifestyle too of stomping out fires in our lives and prevent the fires.
That's so true. That is so true.
We want to use preventative maintenance.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll take our car to Jiffy Lube and get a lube done so that we don't have engine problems, you know, moving forward. You know, will we take care of ourselves the same way so that we don't, you know, and that's one of the worst hindrances to people coming for counseling is that they've let so many things just pass by and didn't pay attention to the signs or didn't do the work along the way. And now, you know, we have these tons of presenting issues when we walk in the door. And then we have to spend so much time, you know, kind of getting those things under control before we can even get, you know, a person to a more of a stabilized place to be able to get some of these disciplines, you know, put into place. That's in the end of the process. The last chapter is, you know, establish newfound disciplines in your life. And these things need to be put in our lives, you know, so that they can stay there and they become the road markers. They become the hallmarks of how we move forward, you know, like accountability and so on, taking your thoughts captive, you know, how you're eating, you know, all the things we mentioned today. So kind of getting towards the end here, I want to, you know, I don't know whether you noticed, Marie, but there was I tried to post up a lot of these comments today. Looks like there's been plenty of people that have come to you and received a lot of help, which that's really awesome. So everybody that's watching, you know, you can go to eisolutions.co and you'll just scroll down and you'll find Marie and her picture up there, just like Anita and Pepe and myself and Damali and all the other counselors. But Marie's there if this was something that really was helpful for you today. I encourage you to do that. Also encourage you to make sure that you go to, I know it's kind of hard to see this here, but this is what it looks like. Go to Amazon, right, Marie, and Barnes & Noble as well?
Yes.
And do you have an Audible available and a Kindle?
The Kindle's available. The audio is coming soon.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, I want to tweak the audio to make the actual the work, the journaling and the listing of the foods, all of that, make it like one, so you could just follow through with the person walking you through each step a little better, because it's audible, so you want to make sure that they follow through step by step, guided step by step. So I'm tweaking that right now. So,
awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah. And then my shameless plug for my own book, which is called The Process. That can also be found on Amazon in all three formats as well. And also, I do have a question real quick. This is also in Spanish if you go to bill-hoffman.com. And there you can sign up for our dailies, which is the EIS Daily Journal. Maria is a contributor. Anita is a contributor. Sandy, who you saw popping up here, is giving me some fresh ones to put up there as well, so that you can kind of get the heart of our counselors and our team expressed through those dailies as well. And before I give the one last statement here, we have one more question here, Marie.
Is it better to get the physical book or the ebook? I'd rather the physical book, I would suggest.
Okay.
Yeah,
I think a journal book like that, a formatted journal book, is going to be best to have your own copy of that. We talked about that last night.
Yes.
You know, I love having that piece in my hand to write in, you know, and take it wherever I go, kind of a thing. And go to the park and sit there and write.
Yeah.
So yeah, for sure. And then next week we're going to have another author coming on. His name is Jesse Barnett. I don't know whether we can see this or not, but he wrote this book called Soul Crushers that I've put up a few times recently. And it's how to release the burdens you were never meant to carry. And so he's going to be our guest next week. So we look forward to inviting him. And man, this was awesome, Marie. Thank you so much. And Anita as well.
Awesome. It was so awesome.
You.
So I'm in the midst of two great book writers. hope one day to be able to come and present a book here too. Not sure when, but I'd like to.
The pressure's on, Anita. Come on. Get on the road.
Distant goal, but yeah, it's great to share. Great to
Well,
Thank
you and Pepe, I'm sure, are going to come up with a book for couples at least
I hope.
Yeah.
I hope.
moving forward. So, all right. Well, we're looking for. Thank you again, everybody, for joining us, and also encourage everyone who is going to see this later on Facebook and on YouTube, but weren't able to tune in live today. And those who are still watching, please share this with people. I think today was just such a powerful, great episode that people just need to hear.
Yep.
Thank you.
All righty. So, but for now, we're going to say goodbye and thank everybody.
Bye.
Yeah.
And EIS out for now.